Alright guys, we got to admit that Franky isn't as great as everybody says that he is. Now, I don't really have a problem with Franky. In fact, in the latest episode that they just released, I thought that Franky had some like shining moments. He is awesome. Just every fan that I meet, Franky is always their favorite like character, and like I don't get why. Maybe you guys could let me know in the comments below, but that's why I'm like, he's a little overrated. But that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about chapter 1019 of One Piece, and this was mainly Franky's chapter. I had a lot of problems with it, but let's get into the video. Now, it's not all bad. The beginning of the chapter, we start off with Sanji, and Sanji is fighting against Queen, and Queen has these lasers, and like all this stuff is going down, and then like Sanji's just like, oh, like, you know, Franky would think this is pretty cool, like stuff like that. And I think those are such cool parts of One Piece to be able to bring like everything together, basically, to tie in like Franky and tie in like all the stuff going on with the scientists and all that. And you know, Sanji's just fighting them, so I don't know, maybe Franky gets like the technology at the end for the lasers and like makes him even more like crazy awesome. After that, we go into Luffy, and the Hearts Pirates are like trying to like resuscitate him and stuff like that, but like they're doing what they should as doctors and like how normal people like function. Like they're like, we already got all the water out of his body, like why is he still not awake? And then of course like Luffy like jumps out, and he's just like, I need meat, and he's like going crazy, and they're just like, okay, I guess we gotta grab him some meat to like bring him back alive. But like, that's just like the absurdism of like what Oda does. Is like, I remember during the Whole Cake Island arc, they like, Luffy gets like his tooth chipped, and I'm like, oh, I guess for like the rest of the story he's gonna have like his tooth chipped. And then he's just like, no, you just need to drink some milk, and he drinks milk, and like his like tooth comes back, and it's like, oh, okay, well that happened. So you know, that could just be the thing here. He just eats some meat and he'll be fine. After that, we go to Zoro's panel, and they're just like, they have like the magical like medicine for him just like out of nowhere, that they've like had all along, but like nobody wants to use it because once the effects wear off, you feel like double the pain and all of that, and even more, like to the point that Zoro will probably like pass out. So you know, nothing like that Zoro hasn't been through before, like talking about Thriller Bark. So he's just like, nah, like give it to me, like I need to get in the fight now. I don't care if like the pain and all of that kills me. And they're like trying to stick it in there, and then he has all the bandages around him, and he's just like, why don't you just take the bandages out? And they're like, oh, okay. So like, I don't know what Oda's doing. Like either these doctors in like One Piece are just like stupid or like whatever. So like the lead like medical doctor of Zo is like trying to take off these bandages now so that he can get Zoro back in the fight, basically. And I have a lot of theories about how all that stuff is gonna go. So yeah, that's what I really like about what Oda does. Like he's touching on all of the really big things until we finally get to the main part of the chapter, which is about the Franky fight, which I have my critiques about. But like there's a whole bunch of more interesting stuff that we could be seeing right now. Like, you know, we haven't seen the Scabbards in so long. We haven't seen what's gone on with Big Mom and Law and Kid and all of them. Like we haven't seen any of that sort of stuff. And that's more the stuff that people like want to see. Like what's going on with the Scabbards? What's going on with Orochi? What's going on with Kandro? What's going on with Kinemon? Like we want to know these things more than we want to know about like Triceratops helicopter man like fighting Franky. It's like we don't really care about this. It adds a lot of really fun moments, and of course we need this pacing in the story to not always make it be like we're always going after something's always going down, but like we're almost getting to the point in the story where like every single chapter needs to be about something. I think my problems come too because it's like we just came off of Jinbei's chapter, and we got stuff about like the sun god, we got stuff about like Luffy's devil fruit and how important like that is to like the overall story. And then we get to this one, and this fight was just like, well, he finally beat him, and yeah, you know, okay, it's over. But I get it, like you need to have some of these fun things that are happening to, you know, pace the story. And then of course we got to get through like the Robin and Brook fight with the spider lady, I forgot her name. But yeah, I think one of the things that this chapter does show though is that through all the events that have been happening, the Beast Pirates are starting to switch sides to the samurai, which I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool. That's like a few panels, and like inevitably it doesn't even matter because like this Sasaki, I keep saying it, but Franky and Sasaki are fighting, and then Sasaki is just like, you're not ready for like my ultimate move or whatever, and he turns into a like helicopter Triceratops man. It's a lot that's going on, but he like is taking on his own men. He's fighting against Franky. And it's a pretty cool battle. It's just like Franky doing all of his like super things, and he's like suplexing them and stuff, and they're going at it. Eventually he breaks Franky's sword, and Franky uses like this like blast cannon or general cannon, I believe that's what it was called, and Sasuke thinks that is his final move, and you're just like, no, of course that's not Franky's final move. But Sasuke comes down and then like pummels him basically, and we think that Franky's done for, but Franky actually like shoots out of the top of his like mech thing, and then he uses his radical beam and like blasts Sasuke out there. So at the end of this chapter, you're like, okay, or not the end of the chapter, at the end of this battle, you're like, okay, this is probably it. We're gonna be moving on to other things. Now I get why there's criticisms and people don't really like this part with Yamato and Kaido at the beginning, at least. Because all they're just talking about is just like, you beat me when I was a kid, and then he's just like, I didn't want you to leave, and then it's like, well, I'm emotionally scarred, and it's like, not that exactly, but like that's basically what they just are always talking about. She's just like, I need to follow, I need to be Oda, and if I'm truly Oda, like I gotta stay and fight, and like beat you basically. And it's like, wow, is this like all they really talk about? But I'm sort of thinking about it, and I'm like, what else is there to talk about? Like, when you're in that sort of like relationship, or you think of any sort of relationship, you only relate on like a few things. And if like Kaido as a father to Yamato never really like got to know Yamato, or like Yamato never really got to know him, and like they never really involved with each other, like he's a bad dad. Like he's not going to try to get to know Yamato and all the stuff going on with him. He's just going to be like, oh, this is going on now, okay, like you're going to be my successor, da da da. Like it's the same thing with like Todoroki and Endeavor, except now that like Endeavor is trying to make good on his past. He's trying to pay for his sins basically, but Kaido's not going to do that. Kaido's a terrible father. He only has like world domination on the mind, like a bad supervillain. But I think what's going to be really cool is seeing kind of like Kaido's backstory eventually, probably in the final battle, but at least seeing like Kaido and Yamato's backstory pretty soon. But yeah, so I'm like, I think it's pretty realistic, because like what else is there to talk about between them? Like that's all they can relate on. That's why they hate, yeah, like that's at least like why they hate each other. So it's like, yeah, like, okay, I get it's annoying, sure, but it's like, what else is there to talk about? They won't reveal too much more new information, except near the end, we finally see that Yamato has a devil fruit. This was already like, people basically already knew this. We got a little panel with like, she had fangs and stuff like that, but we never saw her devil fruit, and it doesn't get confirmed here, but there's a lot of videos online you can watch about what people think it is. So yeah, we get to like see her devil fruit, and then Kaido is just like, you weren't meant to eat that, and then she was just like, I'm hungry, so I had to eat it, like when she was a kid. And it's the same thing with like Luffy. Like Luffy didn't mean to eat a devil fruit, like he just ate it because he was hungry too. So I wonder if there's a connection there. I don't know, like we'll have to see. But yeah, all in all, it was a pretty good chapter, like a decent chapter. Probably like mid-tier for me. They got like some decent stuff that was revealed at the end about like, oh, the devil fruit, like, ooh, we finally got that confirmed. But yeah, like Franky's part could have totally been taken out of the whole thing, and it wouldn't have had anything to do with the rest of the story. Like the rest of the story still could have gone on, but I get why we need to have this sort of pacing, to have like, oh, it's funny because he's like a Triceratops and he's spinning like a helicopter. It's like, okay, let's have our chapters like that, but let's get back to the cool stuff, which I fear that's not going to be the next thing, because the next thing is going to be like Brook and Robin, and it could just be a repeat, but maybe they get some more like information revealed. Like that would be super cool. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this chapter. Leave a like and subscribe, and comment down below what you want to see next, guys. And thank you again for watching.